Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 3, the final part for today, July 6th, 2012. And the first video, well, I does have a video, but I'm not going to play it in case I infringe on anybody's copyrights. So, you go in there and check it out, type this headline here, passengers could be asked to give drink samples to the TSA. It says TSA wouldn't say what they're testing for or why they're doing it. Travelers say they have the right to know. So it says here, passengers say their problem is not with the rules at the airport. Well, mine are. It says here, they understand why drinks are not allowed through security. I don't. But when they buy one, they say, but when they buy one while they wait for their flight, they say TSA shouldn't ask to test it. So, yeah, it's totally ridiculous. But see, that's the thing. This is the mentality of this, the serfs. This is the mentality of the serfs. They've already gave up enough freedoms, one at a time, incrementally, that they, you know what I mean? That's why they're in the boat that they're in. That's why they're treated like slaves. Because they've done this, they've used this logic of, well, they don't have a problem with the rules at the airport, and they understand why drinks are not allowed, where if you go back maybe 40 years ago, they'd be like, how dare you tell me I can't smoke, just outside, now you got to be in a special designated areas and all that. And I understand people say they don't like being around smoke, but yeah, me personally, I think if people smoked organic tobacco, I don't think there'd be that big of a deal. But since they're smoking those damn cancer sticks, loaded with arsenic and all kinds of crazy stuff, then I could see why you'd want to get them away. But now they're just like they're exiling smokers certain distances away from not just public but private buildings and that. So, and the serfs are on board for it, So it says here, passengers say traveling is a big enough stress, but now some are worried that the drinks they are getting are not safe. The TSA wouldn't say what they're testing for or why they're doing it, but travelers say they have a right to know. They said, I'm always glad that my safety is a priority. I just think testing drinks after they've already been bought might be a little extreme and an infrequent flyer, Jennifer Smart said. So, it says here, the water or the juice or anything you buy here in the airport, the TSA is going to come over and look and check and test it. That's just ridiculous, said a world travel. So they went and they asked the TSA, and they basically gave their standard answer, which is, this is usual, standard policy. So just get used to it. So yeah, I mean, I just think of little things, like such as someone that maybe had a kidney transplant recently, and they need to hydrate a lot. They need to drink a lot of water, usually right after that operation, and they may need to drink, really good water, spring water, high quality water, and it's like, what if they're screwed? You know what I mean? You're just sitting there dehydrated. You could possibly die, but they don't care because it's all in the name of security. I mean, they obviously don't care because about people with disabilities. I mean, they'll sit there with ladies and old people in wheelchairs and frisk them. I mean, it's a complete joke. But then they'll say, "Oh, Beyonce, she shouldn't have to get a pat down. I mean, she's obviously not going to blow up a plane, right?" Again, like I said in the last video, you can see where the priorities are, right? So it says here, hi serfs. It says writes a friend. This is from the Lou Rockwell blog. It says the other day the wife and children were going through false security at the airport. I like how they put that. We split up and basically went through the lines such that our refusals and opt-outs are not so concentrated. It said my wife got through pretty quickly with our daughters. It said no x-ray or strip search. We tried to find the right lines. My son and I were stuck in different lines. Then they heard freeze, freeze, or something like this coming from the output side of false security where my wife was, followed by further barking of commands. From where I was, I couldn't see much. She goes, it turns out they were doing a new drill. They want all passengers to freeze on command. My wife told me later that she didn't follow this order fast enough, so the subsequent barks I heard were directed at her. So she says here she took it up with one of the employees who was completely useless, then a supervisor. My wife told her that she isn't accustomed to being ordered around this way and wonders why our government feels it's appropriate. Well, that should be a rhetorical question, right? It says here, then came the blank stare in reply. Yeah, that's the same blank kind of stare I got from the police officer when I asked him if I was obliged to roll down my windows. says here, my wife wanted to make a point as if she didn't feel our daughters should witness such behavior and think it's acceptable, right? Because it's conditioning the youth. Now, that's the whole point. When I do that, that's another ridiculous thing that goes on is the strip searching and stuff like that of like 5-year-olds and basically just pat downs. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, is 5-year-old gonna blow up a plane? But then Beyonce can go right through. I mean, that's just people need to question that instead of just saying, "Well, I'm all right with airport security, and I understand why I don't have water." No, you shouldn't understand, and you shouldn't agree with it. Tell them. But they got all kinds of crazy stuff there: behavioral detection, not just people, but now computer equipment to gauge your behavior. So it says here British Airways staff to compile dossiers on customers using Google image search. So already in the airlines, I mean, if you fly, all of your credit card information, all that's being put in the database and tracked. So next time you fly business class with British Airways, don't be surprised if check-in staff knows a little bit more about you than you're comfortable with. Says that because the staff at the airways lounges will be issued iPads and told to use them to research frequent business class flyers. Using a Google Image application, staff are encouraged to download photos so they can pick people out of the crowd as they arrive and to compile a dossier of any other information they come across for future reference. So 3 NSA whistleblowers back this lawsuit over the government's massive spying program. They said here the former employees have come forward to give evidence in the Electronic Frontier Foundation's lawsuit against the government's illegal mass surveillance program, Jewel versus NSA. And it says here that in a motion, they basically 3 former intelligence analysts confirmed that the NSA has or is in the process of obtaining the capability to seize and store most electronic communications passing through its U.S. intercept centers, such as the secret room at the AT&T facility in San Francisco, first disclosed by retired AT&T technician Mark Klein in early 2006. Next up, we have EU Parliament rejects ACTA anti-piracy treaty. So it says here opponents feared the treaty would lead to censorship and snooping on the internet. So that's the purpose. It says here, and of course, to protect the copyrights, right? To protect the rights of the main propaganda arm for Hollywood. Yeah, so they have a monopoly on propaganda. It says here, Verizon to FCC, free speech trumps net neutrality rules. The carrier has filed its first brief outlining its arguments in a federal lawsuit calling the FCC's rules arbitrary and capricious and unconstitutional. So a little flip side, I guess, a little opposite of what they're doing at AT&T. It says here, the Paul's new crusade, internet freedom. So now the Paul family is going to basically co-opt a consensus, which is now internet freedom, which is now what they're clamping down on. So, right, beginning July 1st. So that's the next thing that they're going to co-opt. And there'll be a lot of rabble, but nothing will get done. Nothing will change for the better, right? Mind control moves into battle. It says here, whether the Sentinel goggles are a harbinger of armed drones controlled by soldiers' minds or merely a reminder the limits of newfangled technology depends on how far you look into the future, right? So basically, if they tell you, or if you see a news thing about, oh, it's almost here or it's here, it means it's already been here for a long time. The DARPA program demonstrates that such brain-computer interfaces can work and do have military applications, but the idea of the machines that can tap into the innermost thoughts of a human being is another matter. We're generations away from that. that they could take your thoughts and put it on and have it printed out on a computer, i.e. accessing your dreams and stuff like that. I mean, I would bet my life that stuff exists. I mean, can I prove it? No, but I would bet my life that technology already exists and is already being used by this shadow government. Life imitating art, robot avatar body controlled by thought alone. So it says here from News Sci, for the first time, a person lying in the MRI machine has controlled a robot hundreds of kilometers away using thought alone. So the ultimate goal is to create a surrogate like an avatar, although that's a long way off yet. Here we go again, right? So that's the director of Joint Robotics Laboratory at the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology in Tsukuba, Japan. So teleoperated robots, those that can be remotely controlled by a human, have been around for decades. And no, this is not the United States, this is the UK, which is having the same problem. Why? Well, because it's by design. Border agency has lost track of migrants. The border agency is ordered to establish the whereabouts of the 150,000 migrants refused permission to stay in the UK. And then they have a little chart right over here, long-term international migration into the UK since 2010. The California Senate has passed the anti-Arizona immigration bill. It says here it seeks to shield illegal immigrants from status checks by local police and challenges Republican-backed immigration crackdowns in Arizona and other U.S. states. So the bill blocks local police from referring a detainee to immigration officials for deportation unless that person has been convicted of a violent or serious felony. So a father and son arrested in Texas shooting of immigrant agents. So what they're not telling you is that they were actually illegal immigrants, I believe, from Ecuador. So it says here that the father and son faced charges after investigators say they opened fire and wounded a U.S. immigration special agent near the U.S.-Mexican border. It goes on, it says the ICE agents arrested Pedro Alvarado, 41, and his son, Arnoldo Alvarado, 18, several hours after Harrison abandoned his vehicle after suffering a gunshot wound to his back. Raul Castro, 96-year-old former U.S. ambassador and Arizona governor, detained at Border Patrol checkpoint. It says here he was detained for more than half an hour in the stifling heat after his pacemaker apparently set off a radiation sensor. He says, I feel they've got a job to do and I don't condemn them for doing their job, but once I was identified and I was 96 years of age and told them I had a medical treatment the day before, I expected a little bit more. Well, you expected wrong, right? Next up we have, I got this in my email. It says here, family is family. Don't kick kids out of the pool because they have gay dads. So it says here, who denies a 2-year-old access to a pool on a hot day? Well, I guess apparently this is a private club in Roanoke, Virginia. And the club basically approved their membership, and then afterwards they basically revoked it because they said, well, that's not their policy, and they just overlooked it. And now they want to sign a petition to force this private club to accept them. And you know, it is going to tie into this because you're seeing this all over the internet right now. White People's Day, Chris Rock jokes sparks backlash. So yeah, he said White People's Day took place on July 4th. So Alabama church holds whites only Christian conference, and this comes from blackamericaweb.com, and of course they have a Confederate flag up there because they're ignorant of the fact that the Civil War had nothing to do with racism or slavery. So of course they put that up there, and you know, these people have the right, dude. Just like if a black guy doesn't want to hire a white guy at his business, he doesn't have to. He's not obligated. He's not obliged to do that, right? And then if a church wants to hold something where it's whites only or blacks only, then that's fine. That's what we're all about, right? Because if we don't allow that, then we're, quote, not free. We're not Americans. So basically, yeah, if Chris Rock wants to make kind of an ignorant comment like this, it's White People's Day, it wasn't White People's Day, it was the Illuminati's Day. That's what it was. They tricked a lot of good people into fighting a war to, quote, succeed from the British crown, when in fact the actual war was funded partially by what? By the Virginia Company, not by the crown. So, I mean, they were duped. They were duped. And slowly their rights were taken away. And yes, we were all slaves. Yes, we were all indentured servants, not just blacks, whites too. But he's free to make an ignorant comment like that. Why? Because it's the same reason why this pool, by this private club, can say, well, if you have gay dads, then you're not really allowed in our pool. Sorry, it's not our policy. You know, just like if they want to have a whites-only Christian conference, then that's fine. But I just find it ironic that the National Day of Prayer that went on since, what, 1952? Even if it's just, you know, whatever, show for the sheeple by the presidents, you know, many of them are Masons and stuff like that. So what, right? It was the National Day of Prayer in May. But Obama decided to skip that day, and in fact, he enacted what? May is the Jewish American Heritage Month. So again, you can see where his loyalty lies. You know, religion aside, he's not loyal to this country, right? Is Obama creating a pro-gay Boy Scouts of America? Well, unfortunately, they're associated with the Mormons, which is what, associated with the Freemasons. So just like Mitt Romney, yeah, it's true. And My Three Daddies, California eyes multiple parenting law. And again with the zombies, a zombie theme park may be headed for Detroit. So there's no roller coasters. It's just if players are caught during the night, they would turn into zombies and go chase their friends. Mother hung herself after becoming fixated with suicide scene from the officer in A Gentleman, while Buddhist attempts suicide after watching Spider-Man. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.